Welcome back, Timeline. I'm your host, Tanya, and this is the most interesting people on my timeline, a series and archive dedicated to exploring the digital space and how it affects the lives and work of my most interesting online friends. If you're new here, welcome to the Timeline. On this podcast, we talk about social media, fandoms, internet culture, but most importantly, we talk about it with interesting people in various fields who I've had the pleasure of engaging with online and IRL. This is an immigrant-led podcast, and even though this season I'm talking about horror as a genre, there are very real horrors happening to our immigrant community. I urge y'all to educate yourselves and find ways to uplift and protect our community. In the description box, I've linked a couple GoFundMes for families whose loved ones have been taken, as well as a few immigrant orgs doing amazing work, including the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective. Make sure to support immigrants, our families, and our art today and every day. Timeline, thank you for joining us on this third episode of our Summerween season. Summer is, in fact, winding down, but it is not over until I say it's over, so stay tuned for 2 more episodes after this one before you start putting away your Summerween vibes. And if you don't know what Summerween is, it is the practice of celebrating Halloween in the summer, hence Summerween. And today's episode features book and film content creator and mental health professional Alise, who is also known as SheReadytoRead online. As always, you can listen to all episodes anywhere you get your podcast, as well as watch a visual version on Spotify and YouTube. You can find all show notes and links in the description box of whatever platform you're listening on or at tanyadoes.com/interesting people. Welcome to this episode of the most interesting people on my timeline. Let me introduce you to Alise.
So I'm Alise. I guess in terms of this setting, I'm a bookish content creator who also makes like movie content now. In my day-to-day life, I'm a therapist. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a student always. I feel like I have never stopped going to school, so just doing that too.
For the listeners, I actually found your TikTok, which is like why I reached out to you. And we'll talk about the series that led me to kind of finding you. But I love like your reviews and especially now with like movies, which is kind of what brought me into your TikTok. But that's where I found you from. Talk us through kind of your journey online. You're a content creator now mainly on TikTok, but how did you kind of get there? And yeah, what's your time online been like?
Oh. So my time online is really as long as I remember. Growing up, when I was very young, we had like that shared family computer in one room that was super slow and you couldn't use it if anybody was on the phone. So I want to say sometime in middle school, I ended up winning a computer in a radio contest, which I didn't saying that out loud makes me feel older than I am because I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. But I won a computer, and so I had like my own computer for the first time. And so I was like in fan forums all the time. I was reading and writing fan fiction. I think my personal time on the internet started with like Tumblr. I had like a poetry Tumblr. And then I briefly made natural hair content online, and then I did not stick to that. I think it was maybe a year, probably not even. And then in like December 2020, I'd always been a big reader, but I ended up graduating, from school, and it was the first time in a while that I wasn't, reading for school all the time. And so I got back into reading for pleasure more, and I just decided to post a picture of it. And 5 years later is what I'm still doing.
I can totally relate to like that one computer that we all had. And actually, radio contests are still very much a thing. I've won a couple. They're very much slept on.
I feel like now you have better chances at winning because I feel like not as many people are listening to the radio.
Exactly. So you guys get on that radio contest. But yeah, I very much like was also a Tumblr girl, like Instagram girl, and that's what got me into all of that. And it's very funny that you say like fan culture was a really big pull for you online because I think especially like women now, like when they were girls or like teenagers, that was our pull and that those were our internet
Yeah.
communities. Yeah, how did that translate to now like be like going into TikTok, and could you talk a little bit about like the content that you create?
So now I primarily make book content, so like book reviews, um, And I just recently, in the past, I guess it's been a couple months now, started making movie content. And then I just do like, random crafts and other things that just happen to be going on in my life. Um, but I think in the beginning, it was like very anxiety inducing, like the idea of getting in front of someone. So for the first, I want to say 2 or so years that I was making book content, I was mostly just posting like actual pictures and videos of books. Like I wasn't posting myself. And I think that's why it took me so long to come to TikTok because the idea of like getting in front of people, even though I can do that in my everyday life, but just getting in front of people and not having control over who's going to see that or what they're going to think of you um, felt really, really anxiety inducing to me. And so one day I just decided, like, I'll give it a try. And I switched over to TikTok, and now that is my primary platform. So I still post on Instagram, just not as much.
Like I think I've like very much also relate to that where like at the beginning I was like, oh, I don't want to be seen, but I want to be here. How do
Yeah.
we do that a little bit? What has really helped you kind of like overcome that a little bit?
I think it's like this idea of to have community, you have to be in community, and you can't expect to really build community without giving some of yourself. And, in an online fashion, a lot of times that is your presentation. And so I think once I connected with people, the idea of like, oh, these are the people that are going to see. I mean, of course, anyone else could see me too, but like, these are the people that are going to see me. And we're talking about similar things and we enjoy similar things, made it feel more personal and just kind of a normal part of my life and not just like throwing something out in public. And so it's been really great. I think it's been like awesome building community and, you know, on a regular basis, I'm talking to people in other countries and, in different parts of the world and seeing all these different perspectives. And I just love that aspect of what you can find online.
Yeah, I think that was like a really big motivator for me to start this podcast too, is like that sense of community and just talking to people based on this like one shared interest. And actually like you're the first like I guess book talk or book reviewer that I've had on the podcast.
Ah,
And if people are watching the video podcast, like you have a great like bookshelf behind you, like you are an avid reader, and we'll talk about reading, but with the Summerween series, we've been talking to a lot of people, especially movies, and we will talk about movies, but what is your like take on that relationship between summer, like horror, Halloween, and things like that? And do you have any favorite literature or media that falls into that?
Summerween, I feel like we kind of associate the idea of horror with, Halloween and fall. But then I think, like a summer camp slasher, that is the stereotypical horror setup, which is already like completely out of fall. We're back into the summer. And, for me, growing up in the summer was when I was watching a lot of movies, during the school year, you go to school, you have after school activities, and then, homework and bed. And so I just had these huge stretches of time to watch movies and, really enjoy different types of media. And so I think that it became a time of the year where I was, just by nature of having free time, able to engage more with things like horror, books, movies, whatever it was. Um, to me, I think horror is a big genre. You can't actually see it, but my like main horror shelves are over there. um, and I genuinely think that there is something for everyone. And, there's something all the way from like literary horror. There are like kids' horror books. There's, a little more on the extreme side, which I definitely know is not for everybody. But I'm always finding something new and something I haven't come across before. And I think that's what really like keeps me going. But when it comes to Summerween specifically, it reminds me of childhood. And I think that's because, like, those summer breaks, that's not really a thing as much once you're an adult. But that was just like such a unique time in life. And so I think like the top things that come to mind for me are probably like Haunted Mansion, like the old Eddie Murphy one, which I know is not critically acclaimed, but I love it. And like the Scooby Doo movie, things like that where you're just a kid having fun. Um, Horror literature. Oh, I feel like any name I say, I'm like, oh, but this one too. Um, some of my favorites are like Tanana Reeve Dew, she's amazing. Adam Caesar, Stephen Graham Jones. I'm actually reading like a queer indie slasher series right now by Matthew Core called Slasherverse. And I believe it's supposed to be 8 books, which I'm not a person that jumps into series lightly, but I absolutely love the first book, which was a summer camp slasher, funny enough, called Camp 1985. And so I'm on the third book of that right now.
Actually, and I might be wrong, but like in the corner of your bookshelf, I spy My Best Friend's Exorcism question mark. I don't.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I have my best friend Exorcism and Horror Store. I went to a convention a couple years ago and got to meet Grady Hendrix, and I got to see him do a live show, which was amazing. He's he's a really great performer, which is not something I feel like I often say about an author, but he's a really engaging performer. It is not organized in any way at this point. I do have which I don't think you can see, the VHS Killers series, which is mostly unrelated books. I think there's 6 or 7 out now, and only 2 of them are related, but they're like these little vignettes, horror stories, and they all look like VHS tapes. I love any horror book that looks like a VHS tape. I'll buy it. I don't even have to know what it is. I think actually my best friend's exorcism is one of those that kind of has that VHS look.
And I love anything that's like a little gimmick that can also be a little like trinket. Like
Yes.
we had a conversation before this and I saw like the Jaws popcorn bucket that you had.
Hmm.
I was and then I know that they're coming out with like the 50th, like it's in theaters again. So I'm like, I love that you are a collector of those and that that's part of it. Because I think physical media is gonna make a comeback. So
You don't really own anything unless you actually own it. Actually, I might be able to adjust for one sec. So there's some of my other popcorn buckets. The Haunted Mansion one actually is, her crystal ball. Ghostface is a popcorn bucket, and then the ones over here are the popcorn buckets from Sinners.
the series that actually brought me to your page was that you are watching Fangoria's top 100 horror movies. What day are you on now?
I am posting 41 today, I believe, 41 or 42.
And so, yeah, talk to us about that series. Like, what's it been like so far?
It's one of those things where in hindsight, I every other day I'm like, did I bite off more than I can chew here? I am having so much fun doing it, but it was really such an impulse decision. Like I saw the poster. I didn't even own the poster at that point. I have since purchased it, but I saw the poster and I was like, I could do that. I'll just do it. And like the next day I posted the first video. I am going in order from number one to number 100. I wish I had done it the opposite way and started at number 100 and went to number one because I started off wrong. And now we're starting to get into more of the movies where I'm like, maybe this wouldn't go on my list. But it's been a lot of fun. Just kind of revisiting movies I haven't seen in a long time, or sometimes movies I've never seen, and connecting. I've connected with a bunch of new people, well, including you, through this series that they aren't really in the book community or watching that kind of content, but they are watching movie content. So I've had some really great conversations and met new people that way, and it's been a lot of fun.
Have you seen a difference between like the people that you connected when you were doing mostly like book related content versus like now getting into movies, or is there like a pretty big overlap?
There is some overlap because I do read a lot of horror books. So, there's some kind of overlap there. But I think most of the time, the people that I have conversations with about those videos are not people that I had connected with before. And, there's varying opinions, obviously. When you're talking about the top 100, those are movies that most people really love. And some of those are not movies that I love. So it's interesting to, kind of get online and be like, this thing that everyone loves, I didn't like today. And so, when you're talking about things online, I think there's always a level of respect that you give, especially to movies that even if I don't personally like them, like they're big in the genre or they have a really important place in the genre, and I can understand that and I know why they're on this list, even if they're not my personal favorites. Um, but it has been really fun to have those conversations.
And I mean, you're almost like halfway through it, and I know you mentioned like you didn't mean for it to line up with Summerween, but like yeah, like what has that journey been like? What are like the patterns I guess you picked up or like anything that you picked up from watching, 40 plus movies so far?
I think I have been surprised at how many sequels one are out there. There's some movies I'll watch it and then I look it up and there's like 10 sequels. I'm like, okay, I'm not watching 10 sequels. But just to see like how much people really invest in a certain franchise or character and then they are like full on committed, even when fans of the franchise themselves isn't good anymore, but I love it so much. And I think seeing movies that I either thought were really, really scary when I was young, and now that I'm an adult, I'm like, this is not scary at all. Or seeing movies like The Exorcist was one where, and Jaws too, actually. So we just mentioned that. Where watching it now, it felt way more intense than it did when I watched it before. And I was like, I don't remember this being so like maybe not terrifying in the aspect of like I'm scared, but The Exorcist, one of the things I talked about in that video was the parts where she's in the hospital and they're doing the tests. And it was really hard to watch. Like, I was like, okay, I need this part to be over. And, when I was younger and watching that, it really didn't phase me. And so, kind of seeing what's the difference in me as I'm older in like what I'm connecting to and what I'm distressed by when I'm watching these movies has been really interesting.
That kind of reminds me, I was recently watching X for the first time and it I like for example like they would be eaten by like alligators or something or like something gory would happen. I'd be like, okay, gory, it's part of horror. But then like the part where like she's in the bed with her, I was like, oh, that was so like oh like that's awful. Like I was like was
Yeah.
oh flinching. So it's like yeah, as you grow up, you different things are like are scary to you based on that
Yeah.
perspective. So, do you have like a overall favorite one that you've watched so far, or like one that stood out to you from the ones you've watched?
Well, I watched one of like two of my favorites, which are Scream and The Thing, have already been on the list. So I just had such a great time. I'm trying to think of new ones that were on the list that I've seen. Oh, I watched Martyrs recently. It is a French horror film. It is probably the most disturbing movie I feel like I've seen. I doubt I will ever watch it again, but it was really good. And I was surprised. It is a pretty recent movie. I think it was 2008, I want to say, but it was rough. And I was like, one, I think that makes me want to watch more foreign films because I think outside of like J horror, like Ring and those movies where they had American remakes and then I went back and watched the originals, I haven't really explored a ton of horror films internationally, and so that is something I really do want to do now.
I've been also trying to watch like more horror, especially during this time. Like I wanted to. That's kind of what inspired me to do this series for the podcast. But I'm like, oh, there's these all like international horror ads, like another like there's different approaches to it, and I'm like really excited to get into that. Like one for me is Tigers Are Not Afraid, which is a Mexican horror film, and
Okay.
the way that it like it's kind of like what if like drug lords were also satanic and that's how they were and like the kids were like fighting that. So it's a very interesting
Interesting.
take on that. So yeah, I just love like those approaches to it, especially like a little bit more modern horror. So I mean, kind of back to literature. I mean, do you have you were talking like you were reading that series. Is there other like horror literature that you've really liked in the past as well?
Two that I read last year, The Eyes Are the Best Part, which just had an announcement for a movie adaptation, so I'm super excited about that. and there's a collection of stories by Gemma Amor called All Who Wander Are Lost. And it is destination horror stories. It was one of my favorite books I read last year in general. I'm trying to think. Oh, I saw Clown in a Cornfield earlier this year when it came out, and that actually you can see on my shelf right there, is one of my favorite series. It's a YA slasher series. I read The Reformatory recently and really loved. I feel like there's so much just in the genre. I'm like, hey, let me just turn my camera and we'll just go book by book.
Honestly, yes. Like when I always ask like, oh, what is the favorite? But really what I should be saying is like, what are the recommendations? Because they're it's like the favorite's gonna change every time
It
and
does.
yeah. But I didn't know Clown in a Cornfield was like a YA series.
Hmm.
So I need to look into that. That kind of like made me think like have you seen or what are like the monsters that are usually associated with Summerween? I feel like Halloween has, we have slashers and there's, them. But what is like the Summerween monster?
I feel like it is slashers. I know like Halloween, obviously the most well-known slasher ever, but I feel like slashers are such a summer thing because in the summer, that's when you're running around outside. Everyone is everywhere. People are more likely to be out at night than in the winter, or even in the fall. It was another thing I was talking about with these movies because I feel like we don't do as many creature features anymore, and I love creature features. So I feel like I would have to say the slasher just because I can't think of anything else that's like summer specific, unless it's something in the water. I, now I'm trying to think, are there? Well, I guess Jaws,
Yeah,
but I'm like, is there anything in the water? In that collection, All Who Wander Are Lost, actually one of the stories takes place at a state or national park that's actually local to me in Virginia Beach. And it is a creature feature, and it's like this amphibious creature. I want more of that. That is my ideal of what we would see in the summer is something amphibious.
I do think I agree. We need to bring back creature features and we need to bring back animatronics, practical
Oh
effects.
my
I did
gosh.
see the new Jurassic Park recently and I was like, great, but if they were animatronic, I'd be
Yes.
impressed.
There's that part, and this is not a spoiler, but that big what are the big ones that were on land? Because they have like the three different kinds. I cannot remember the name, but you know what I'm talking about. The one they're
Yeah.
like the long neck dinosaurs, but if they were even bigger, uh,
Yes, yes.
those looked so CGI'd. I was like, it looks like you copy pasted that on the screen, and I did
Oh,
love that
like the
movie though, by the way.
Titanosaurus. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I was like, you guys. But I because that's what was kind of like scary. Like when you're on the ride, it's because there's the animatronics and they're even like creepier in a sense too. I think I was reading somebody's take on, or not reading, I was watching it on TikTok. Somebody's take on the new Jurassic Park where it was like they needed to lean more into the horror of it because that's where like the suspense comes in. Because I did think it was
Mm.
action packed, but I was like. I need a little bit more suspense. I don't know. I don't know. That they should have leaned into horror a little bit. But yeah, like you said, creature features, they need to come back. I forgot who I was talking to, but it was um the slashers were really popular and I think they connect to summer because like the Night Stalker and everybody was like they would leave their windows open because it was hot and that like invited crime or whatever. So that's kind of like where that relationship also started, which is really interesting.
I feel like slashers, they're so easy to connect to because they're kind of like everyman horror. Like, anyone can be the slasher. It's not a vampire. You don't have to have done anything supernatural. It's just a guy or I guess a lady. I'm trying to think how many lady slasher films I've seen. Usually a guy in a mask running around. And, that's just a person.
Yeah, yeah, they are mostly men. I think the only like woman slasher is like in Sleepaway Camp where it's like Angela, but there's like the twist that she's like not Angela or whatever the hell it
Yeah.
is. Like which I think is very interesting for the time too what that commentary was. But I think like a lot of people enjoy that film now and like are trying to get back into that discourse.
Yeah, I think that film has had kind of like a revival. I was reading this book called Queer Screams, and focuses on kind of the history of queer representation in movies, and that is one piece that they talked about with Sleepaway Camp, how, you know, in kind of its revival and people revisiting it, that some people see this character in a completely new way, and like what that representation means to different people. Because for some people, I think it is just really offensive and harmful. And then for some people, they have kind of reclaimed that in a new way, which, I think when you can kind of reflect on media critically, obviously nothing's above criticism. Like, we're not going to hit everything right, especially when, the further back we get, things get a little dicey. Um, but I think that in a lot of places, people are taking taking on parts of these films and, being able to really find something joyful or familiar in that, even if, you know, we're not in love with the whole idea.
Yeah, and even like what it might have been meant to say back then can take a new meaning now. And it's actually like it came across the term reparative reading. Funnily enough, with a lot of people doing discourse around Sex in the City, where like there are things that are objectively like problematic about these things in the past that did not age well. How can we still read them for like what they are now in like a reparative manner? So I think that that's
Yeah.
kind of like my mindset as I'm going in and reading or watching a lot of like older media too. You know, you're also like an avid reader. Like, I wanted to touch a little bit more about that, especially that's how you started your content. Like, and we
Yeah.
also, when we were having our previous discussion, we were talking about Canopy and library. So, like, you know, what is your favorite way to read? Where do you recommend people buy your books? Or like, how do you, especially again, you have a lot of physical media. Like, what is that like for you to engage with that?
So I just in general prefer physical books. So obviously have a lot of physical books just because that is how I love to read. I just think there's like something really engaging about sitting down and having a physical object to focus on. But other than that, I love to put my Kindle in a little holder and lay in my bed and use my page turner. So, whatever works for the moment. As for buying books, I am a big supporter of indie bookstores. When we had our first conversation, I was in the back room at my local indie bookstore. They let me use their back room. So I have to always give a shout out to them, which is Eleanor's collective in Norfolk, Virginia. They're amazing, and they do have a Patreon if you want to support them, even if you're not local to them. They're like a really amazing space, and they do a lot of like educational programming and mutual aid programming. And I just think physical book spaces can be, libraries included, can be such important community spaces. And I think coming into a place that's full of knowledge and different perspectives is just, there's just something amazing about that, in being able to go somewhere and be able to look up anything, or pick up five different people's perspectives and just kind of get in their head for a little bit. I say support your local indie bookstores, or support my local indie bookstore. And then your public libraries, of course, they need our support now more than ever. So, even if it's just going in and applying for a library card, even if you're not going to go all the time, or if you're just going to use digital services, just being a part of that community and showing support is always so important.
I 100% agree. I was such a library kid, like the librarian knew my name at school. Like, and then as an adult, you know, getting out of school, it was a little bit harder, but public libraries, like, they have so much to offer. One of my roommates, she worked at the library at some point, and so we would go, and there's just so much that people don't know that you can get from public libraries,
Yeah.
digitally or in person. You know, lots of in-person service. At least in LA, there's the Octavia Butler Lab, so you can go in and it's like free, like podcast studios, like 3D printers, like things like that. And I know that's not the only library that has that. And on top of that,
Yeah.
Canopy. So also movies like. And a lot of the films that I've been watching, you know, for to satiate my Summerween like watching have been on Canopy, which is through a public library too. So yeah, I think people need to get on that. And I think I'm trying to also, I have a younger sister. I'm trying to promote literature in family in the new generation. Um, Because I mean, it's weird because I'm someone that's been online for a long time, so I understand why like she wants to be online and be in that like iPad babies. I solidarity with the iPad babies, but also I'm like, we need to read again, you guys.
Yeah, yeah. My younger sister is actually a librarian, so I love library. It's one of my favorite people in the world. But yeah, I think even using libraries outside of just books, they have so many things. There's like the library that I used to go to. They let you check out like games, video games, board games, like just a bunch of random physical objects you could come and rent. And I think I know, at least for me, like the public library literally changed the course of like who I am. When I was a kid in elementary school, I went to a Christian school. And so it was extremely limited on what we were allowed to read and the books that they had in stock. But my family has always been a really big proponent of me reading and really encouraged that. And so my mom would take me to our public library, and I used to go like with this giant tote bag that we used. And you could check out, I think it was like 20 or 30 books at a time. And I would just like fill it up and stick it on the counter. I feel like I would not be the person I am today if I didn't have access to all of those different types of perspectives, because it really did change like how I think about the world, and recognizing not everyone does live the same life as me, and there's all these wonderful things and peoples and perspectives that are worth listening to and finding out more about, which I wouldn't have had as much access to if it wasn't for the library.
No, exactly. And that also like comes into like community where like I would become really good friends like the librarian or like they would help me out or like other kids as well. And as an adult I've kind of transitioned into like book clubs and even within these spaces we're also like yearning for community. Are you on any like social reading apps and stuff like that like Storygraph, Goodreads or anything?
Yeah, I am on both. I have Storygraph and Goodreads. I also run a book club called Diversify Your Reading, and that's on bookclubs.com. So we meet once a month and, discuss a book, and then we chat, just about general stuff throughout the month of Discord. So I'm always a proponent of like finding community and connecting with people over literature in whatever way you can.
And I believe Diversify Your Reading is also a challenge on Storygraph that you run, right?
Yes, I actually made the challenge first, and the second year that I did the challenge, I started the book club. So we're on our third year. So it's been a journey.
I need to join that in. I'm a very big fan of Storygraph. I love it. People don't know what that is. It's very similar to Goodreads, but you can do reading challenges. You can do buddy reads with people. I haven't been on Goodreads in a while, so I don't know if you can also do that there now. But Storygraph has been really great.
I feel like Goodreads does not update. They have their niche and they just stick to it.
They're like, this is who we are and who we've been. And I do want to join that book club actually because the book club I'm in now, it's like me and my a couple of my friends like every couple months we'll read like a book. So which is nice, but I was like, okay, let's meet some new people actually. So let me join that in.
And I always say, if you have local bookstores near you, to see if they have book clubs, because a lot of them do host book clubs. Even if you don't buy the book there, you can still come and go to the meetings. My local bookstore has, I want to say, like four different book clubs. There's another bookstore that's like an hour from me that they have six different book clubs. So there's so much book community out there to be joined.
So do you have whether it be like a general online era or like a personal online era to you that you look back on fondly?
It feels so weird to be at an age where I say I'm aging myself because my mom used to say that all the time. When I was young, I was obsessed with a boy band called B5, and they had a fan forum. It was like a mix of like fan fiction and just like a Reddit style forum almost. And that was like such a cornerstone of my internet involvement. Like I met people on that website that I still talk to like what, something like almost 20 years later. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. LimeWire was a time on the internet.
Yes, LimeWire allegedly was really, really great.
Yeah, allegedly when people were accessing music in different ways. I think that is such a stereotypical time online. And it ruined, I'm sure, many, many people's computers with all of the viruses.
To be fair, allegedly, a positive that came out of that was I well there you would download a song and you wouldn't know if it was actually that song or not, or like a similar song with the same name. Sometimes you
Yep.
would get put onto some good songs with the same name.
Yes, I remember people allegedly used to upload just like their own original music and then put the title of like, whatever was number one on the charts because I knew people would be downloading it and you would download it and be something completely different. But sometimes it was really good.
The original Discover Weekly or whatever. Um, that's such a good time. And again, I think what I have found from interviewing so many people is truly that fan culture is like the driving force of any like culture period at all.
Yes.
And especially teenage girls, like they run the world and will always run the world. Like fan fiction, they have spawned series, entire communities, like the Marauders fandom, their own little thing spin off from Harry Potter is a driving force as well. So
I know like so many people that that are like published authors today that got their start out when I was again in I think middle school, maybe that was the time when Twilight first came out. I'm not saying Twilight was good. It was a specific time in my life, but I just remember how much fan fiction there was, and like the thought that hundreds of thousands of stories were written based on these, random characters from this book. There's just something amazing about that to me that people can take something and like transform it in this way just for their pleasure. Like you don't get anything out of it. You're not getting paid for it. It's just for the joy of reading.
exactly. And like just creating like that's it's not your job. You're not getting paid like you said, like you just really love to do this anyway. And I actually think Wattpad now, you can get paid to write on Wattpad.
Yes. They publish physical books now.
Yeah. That's another thing. Have you seen like the people will print out their favorite fan fiction and bound the books also? That's like separate, but like on their own.
Yes, I have seen that. It is amazing. I I feel like I always have to like give that disclaimer of like selling fan fiction is illegal. Please don't do it. But I think it is like so cool to see like how many people have just made that their hobby. Um, I saw a girl that like she did for Christmas a bunch like bound her friends' favorite like fan fictions for them. And it's like it just never stops. It's just something made out of something made out of something, and now you have this completely new thing.
Exactly. Yes. And it's a labor of love, honestly, to do. Sometimes I'm like, I could do bookbinding, but I shouldn't.
I'm with you. I know that's something I would buy like all the equipment and all the materials. I would get through binding half of one book and I would never touch it again.
Also, like I've learned from watching those videos is like some fan fictions are long. They're like encyclopedia length, and if
Yes.
they were devouring them in a couple weeks, just reading and scrolling. So that's very interesting once they put into like a physical media. I actually really love like your username. So you could talk about that one or any other ones that you've had in the past for this segment. It's called What's in a Name. So yeah, what are the origins of your screen names and your various personas online that you've had?
My very first name, I'm trying to even, was from I was like, I can't say it because I don't want y'all to find it. Was like a random line from an angsty song that I was listening to when I was 12. And when I started this account, it is She Ready to Read. I couldn't find, like, I just couldn't find something. Everything I was trying, I either didn't like it or it was taken. And I was just looking for something that, like, indicated this is book content, I'm reading. I was just like, okay, I gotta pick something. And that popped in my head. Feel like I had heard I feel like I heard someone say something similar, and then I just put it together, and I was like, oh, She Ready to Read. Let's go. I'm ready. Let's do it.
And you are ready? You are ready to read. No, I love that. And I feel like we've all had those little like there was just one line of a song or you were feeling really emo and that was your whole persona that you decided to create online.
Oh, that I feel like that was Tumblr in a nutshell. It's like, what are the most emotional parts of my life? Let's put it out on the internet.
Something that stood out to me in our last conversation when we were talking about Tumblr is that it was such a safe space. Like you really kind of were, and very similar to like Wattpad and anywhere where you could create like a persona. There's just this anonymity of and just like on like, you could be really honest, sometimes too honest, like on spaces like that.
Yeah. No, it's I think obviously as the world's been more virtual, we're all connected in new ways online, and so sometimes, of course, that anonymity, you get trolls and things like that where it goes the wrong direction. But I think it also can be like such an amazing safe space for people who, may not have community in their everyday life or may have issues that prevent them from accessing the community that's around them. And so you kind of have this space where you can just be who you want to be and talk about what you want to talk about and connect with other people. And I think it can be a beautiful thing when we're all doing what we need to do.
And on this podcast, we also like to, put other people on. Could you talk about some of the most interesting people on your timeline?
Yes, I prepared. I prepared. I'm actually gonna look at a note because I don't want to get anyone's username wrong. So oh, and this is funny because this is someone that I connected with because of the Fangoria series. His name is Nicholas Crawford. I think it's Nicholas underscore Crawford on TikTok. And he just makes these really thoughtful videos, primarily about horror movies, horror books, and horror content. But he like really dives into like the underlying themes and emotions and how we connect that to our perceptions and identities today. And I've loved every video that I've seen so far. Her name is Keisha, and then the username is the Blurred Library. She makes content about speculative fiction, primarily by Black authors and other authors of color. She talks about like comics, graphic novels, accessibility, and different types of media. And then Jamie, whose username is Jamie, which is spelled Jaime dot Sweet Bookie Heart. He is, and that is like so him. He's like I just such a like positive. I don't know. It's just like when I see his videos, they're just so positive and fun. And he primarily makes book content as well. A lot of like thrillers, urban fiction, romance, and has some of the most amazing like nail sets, which I need to go back to getting my nails done. And then Jessie, who is at Exclusive Palm Beach Living, and she focuses on Latinx literature kind of across genres, but also has a big focus in horror books.
Is there anything cool, in the in your future that is coming up that you want to share with folks? Or like even with, your series that you're doing, is there a movie you're excited to watch?
Okay, so a lot of the lower number sounds rude. I mean, it's a top 100, so they're all good. So even if you're the last on the list, you're still good. But like the last 20 movies, there's a ton of them that I have never seen, so I'm really excited to watch those for the first time. I think you mentioned at the beginning of this of watching X. That is up there, which I haven't seen, so I am excited to check that out. And then in my everyday life, I don't know. I feel like this year I had a really difficult year last year. I feel like when I came into this year, and especially this summer, I've been really intentional about like being open to new experiences. And so, I've started like volunteering in different places and going to different events and just trying to experience more of life. I'm going to the Lantern Festival later this summer for the first time. If you would have asked me last week, I would have said Beyonce because I was seeing Beyonce last week. Um, but yeah, I guess there's nothing big, but I'm just excited to do new things. Something fun coming up is me and my sister are actually going to do a Summerween weekend together. So we have put together like a list of movies, like crafts, Summerween food. We're going to make the Scooby-Doo cartoon sandwiches, like a bunch of other little snacks and things. So that's fun. I feel like we should just start making up events and doing them. Just
Honestly, yes. And I actually love that. I do want to have like a Summerween night with my friends too, so I'm kind of like planning that. But another one of our guests, he's a screenwriter and he writes horror, and he's doing also a Summerween thing with his friends, and he also has like a mobile theater when he goes around to different like farm worker communities, and he like shows movies, and he's doing like a Summerween series on that. So
That's
again,
amazing.
I love that that is adding a new event, like kind of event for the summer. And again, like it's I love Halloween, so as if we get more of that, that's great.
What an idea.
And you actually inspired me. I'm gonna add Scooby-Doo because I have a running list of movies that I want to watch during this time. So I'm gonna rewatch Scooby-Doo. I love those movies.
Oh my goodness. Scooby-Doo, if there's any gateway horror in the world, make sure your kids watch Scooby-Doo.
Mhm. Spooky Island. I kind of, I would go to Spooky Island. I would.
I know they would have gotten me, and that is the hardest thing I think about. Sometimes watching horror movies, a lot of times you're like, absolutely not, I would never do that. And then sometimes you see something, you're like, yeah, they would have got me. I would have been there.
Yeah, yep, that's where I would have died. Yeah, there. Is there where can people find you online? Where would you like to be found where people can like connect and be in community with you?
I am consistent, so it's She Ready to Read on every platform, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, Storygraph, Goodreads, whatever used to be Twitter. I don't really use it anymore, but I'm there. Yeah, or my book club is Diversify Your Reading, and that's on bookclubs.com. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all the places you can access me.
Um, thank you so much. I mean, for your time. Is there any lasting words you want to leave the audience or the timeline?
No, I feel like in these times you're supposed to always like say something really important. I don't know. I guess support your local libraries and your local indie bookstores. They're amazing and they're there. And find community, be good community to other people. That's all I got.
Simple and so true, actually. So true and so important. Alise, thank you so much for speaking to me today. I'm so happy that I like came across your TikTok page and then we got to have this conversation. You're amazing. Thank you.
All of Elise's work is linked in the description, and you can head over to tanyadoes.com/Elise for all show notes. Make sure to tune into Elise's Fangoria challenge on TikTok, that's now on day 57, and also join her book club because I'll be joining in for next month, so catch me there as well. Also, make sure to follow me, your host, on Instagram and TikTok at Tanya Does, and subscribe to my YouTube channel to stay up to date on this series. The Most Interesting People on My Timeline is an independent podcast hosted and produced by yours truly, Tanya Dominguez Rangel, with design support from Maida Sanchez. To support our work, consider joining our membership base at Buy Me a Coffee, and if you've got the big bucks, we are open to ad slots as well. In our next episode, I'll introduce you to a farm worker/immigrant rights activist, horror screenwriter, and soon-to-be movie theater owner. Stay connected and stay creating beautiful things, and I'll catch y'all in the next episode.